Is he okay? Yeah, no, he's charred, burnt to a crisp for the most part. He not only seemingly shot himself in the head, but he also detonated a sequence of explosives inside of his Cybertruck outside of Trump Tower.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin McMahill. I'm the sheriff for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Over the last couple of days, since the bombing and death of the individual inside of the Tesla at Trump Towers, had a number of priorities that we've been trying to accomplish over those days. The first one of those priorities was to confirm that there's no further threat. I think we've completed that. The second was to positively identify the suspect. We've also done that today. I can confirm that that is Matthew Livelsberger. We also wanted to confirm that there were no other actors involved in this incident. I believe we've done that, and you'll hear much more about that as we move forward today. We've also today, I'm going to be able to share with you some of what we believe to be his plans and motives as to why he conducted this attack. Now, before we go on, I want to just address a couple of things before we get too far along here. I want you to know that we're very well aware of a podcast that is going around today and the contents of the letter in that podcast. And I just want you to understand that since we've been conducting these press conferences, I have only given you information that we have verified and deemed to be factually accurate. We've been aware of that document for a while now, and we still have not completely gone all the way through that and verified that entirely. We are in one of the two telephones and one laptop, so one telephone and one laptop that we still have not been able to get into. There is one cell phone.
What is this? Johnny Midwest, check the logs. I'm a ER nurse in Oakland. Soap and water is all you need. If you really want to go overboard, use iodine, but beware it stains the skin for a while. More extra credit, put a little bit of antibiotic ointment or Vaseline. I already did it. I did all of that. I did soap and water, and I did the rest of it. Damn, Kaya is so well trained. How long did that take? My king, please go wash your hands. Fine. I don't know what podcast they're talking about, but I suspect that that's where the manifesto conversation started, maybe. Wait, he was on Sean Ryan's pod? Wait, what? This guy was on Sean Ryan's? Breaking, Sean Ryan just dropped the emergency Matt Livelsberger episode, allegedly posting an email manifesto from the Green Beret behind the Tesla truck. In an email dated December 31st, this makes sense. Sean Ryan is like Sean Ryan is the #1 podcast for guys like this. He's the guy whose podcast had Pete Hegseth on as well. The real email manifesto sent. I urge everyone to dedicate at least 35 minutes to fully grasp the details that have unfolded over the past few days. This episode takes a deep dive into the manifesto, an email sent to Samosar by Matt Livelsberger himself. Within this chilling document, Livelsberger boldly declares, what I'm going to send you is going to change the course of humanity. Former Green Beret. Well, he wasn't a former Green Beret. I'm pretty sure the manifesto is fake news. The source of it is a couple months old. Is at the center of the story just days before he drove a Tesla Cybertruck loaded with explosives to Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. The Cybertruck incident has raised serious questions about Livelsberger's motivations, his credibility, and the information he shared. In this episode, we unpack the manifesto's contents. That's twice now true crime terrorists and mill murderers to appear on Rogan and Sean Ryan. Yeah, we'll take a look at it. We'll take a look at this is the one they went over in the press conference. Fellow service members, veterans, and all Americans, time to wake up. We're being led by weak and feckless leadership who only serve to enrich themselves. We are the United States of America, the best country people ever to ever exist, but right now we are terminally ill and headed towards collapse. This was not a terrorist attack, it was a wake-up call. Americans only pay attention to spectacles and violence. What better way to get my point across than a stunt with fireworks and explosives? Why did I personally do it now? I need to cleanse my mind of the brothers I've lost and relieve myself of the burden of the lives I took.
That we are getting into, and I can tell you
he
that
is a
we are
Trump
barely
supporter.
Surface and almost hourly receiving additional information requiring substantial investigative effort.
I don't know if this is
of this joint investigation between ourselves, the FBI, and the ATF. And so, again, While I understand all of that is out there, I believe it is our responsibility to give you what we know to be a fact, and that is what I will continue to do as we move forward. A couple of questions came up in regards to the positive identification of the suspect in the vehicle. I want to give you a couple.
Yeah, he texted his ex. It's so wild that Connor O'Malley is genuinely Nostradamus. Las Vegas bomber reached out to his girlfriend ex-girlfriend a few days before the attack. I rented a Tesla Cybertruck. It's the shit. I feel like Batman or Halo. Oh, okay. It's been a while. So much learning and fun. I rented a Tesla Cybertruck. It's the shit. I'm building drones in my new position. You would love it. I feel like Batman or Halo. I don't know if this is cool or I should bully you about it. How fast is it? Ungodly. I feel like Batman or Halo is such a funny take. CNN has an email. Lausberger said in an email the day before the explosion that he was armed and in possession of a massive VBIED and expressed conspiratorial concerns that government agencies were tracking him. A copy of the email viewed by CNN said, okay, I trust this. New details on the Cybertruck explosion. Master Sergeant Lausberger was diagnosed with depression last year, but had not been assessed to be a risk of violence or suicide. Two U.S. officials familiar with his record tell me and Natasha Bertrand. This is from CNN. Law enforcement has received the message and examined where the email originated and believe it was written by Lausberger, a law enforcement official familiar with the investigation, told CNN. He tried to flex and she wanted to bully him. She caused it. Okay, yeah, it's a sarcasm. It's been posted on Reddit. Do claim the drones are Chinese craft based on alien technology. Okay, dude, I don't think. He also drove to the wrong Las Vegas at first. The guy who blew up his Cybertruck accidentally went to the wrong Las Vegas at first. Wait, what? I don't believe this account is a meme account. That account is a meme account. I don't think he went to Las Vegas, New Mexico on accident. It's most likely that there are charging stations on the path. Yeah. It is 100% reverse engineered alien tech. Aliens are not primitive enough to use propellers. It is not aliens. What? Yeah, I suspect that in the mountaintop, they don't have as many Tesla supercharger stations. So he was forced to drive around the mountains rather than over it, but I don't know. Anyway, we'll look at the I'll look at the email, but I'm not entirely certain as to the veracity of this email. I don't know if it's legit or not. Okay?
A couple of photographs as to what it was that we had some conversation around, because there's some tattoo comparisons that we needed to do. And in those tattoo comparisons, in this particular photograph, you can see a tiger tattoo, and there's a secondary tattoo on the stomach that the wife had told us about. Jesus
Christ.
You can see that some of it is burnt, some of it is not burnt, and while the body was still in the vehicle, we were unable to identify those specific tattoos until we were able to remove some of it. Secondarily to that, there's also a surveillance photograph that we obtained of our subject in Colorado wearing that very distinctive brown jacket. You'll see that a little bit later here in some of the photographs that one of the assistant sheriffs is going to talk to you about. There's also a lot of conversation that I hear out there about the fact that...
Is he okay? Yeah, no, he's dead. He's dead. He's super dead. He's charred. Burnt to a crisp, for the most part. He not only seemingly shot himself in the head, but he also detonated a sequence of inside of his Cybertruck outside of Trump Tower, which, you know, doubly killed him, I guess. But yeah. The
identifications, the credit cards, and the number of things that I provided to you previously did not show up as burnt in the explosion in the vehicle. And so I did think it was important for me to address a couple of those issues so you understand where we're at. That's a photo.
What am I even looking at here? Like, I don't even know what this is. It's just like bits of Lausberger and a wallet. Is that what it is? Also, how good of a wallet is it that it just like protected the materials even after?
Photograph of the wallet. It's a leather wallet. Clearly, it's burnt up pretty well. However, that wallet was found in the back seat under some debris in the vehicle, and it contained, you'll see in this photograph, the credit cards, so a photograph, and a number of other pieces of identifying information.
I'm glad that they hid the credit card number because, you know, someone could use them. And it would be really lame. Someone could use that and steal Matthew Lilasberger's money.
Military identification that I initially told you about was also located within inches of the wallet. And you'll see much of this stuff does have some burn damage on it. The passport that I described to all of you was found in the back, in the bed of the truck under debris as well, and you'll see a photograph of that in there. I also had mentioned to you that we were going to be doing dental records to identify the subject in the vehicle. The Department of Defense provided those dental records to us. We then forwarded them to the coroner, and the coroner also provided a positive identification for us. Finally, we had also requested DNA from the family, which was provided to us, and it matched to our suspect. We then, of course, had now confirmed fully his identity to you.
Johnny D. Fango, thank you for the 10 community gifted subs. Allowing 10 people to no longer see the ad break at the top of the hour, which doesn't come anyway, but still, you can still subscribe yourself for free with a Twitch Prime if you would like to do so, or for $5 or $6. That's right. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
There has been, again, a tremendous amount of investigative effort that has been introduced to you.
Thank you for the 10
Assistant Sheriff Dory Corrin, to go over some of the extensive investigation that has occurred. Dory?
Good afternoon. I'm Assistant Sheriff Dory Corrin. I oversee our Homeland Security and Investigative Services group, which includes our counterterrorism unit that's been working around the clock on this investigation. I just want to briefly share a few updates on some key areas to include the operational activity that led up to this incident, a little bit of information on the post-blast investigation as we know it today, and then finally some of the information that we're discovering most recently about motives and plans to give you some insight on why this individual committed the act that he committed. To begin...
Yes, he was inside the car, and he allegedly shot himself, according to the investigators, before he blew up the car. Or like, they still don't know how he lit it up, okay?
Again, just with the operational activity, the sheriff yesterday talked about the route that the suspect took to get to Las Vegas.
Weren't they calling him a terrorist? The answer is because he's a Trump-supporting white guy, and he also didn't kill a healthcare CEO. I hope that clears up the confusion. Why did he do it? We still don't fully understand what his motives were.
Vegas. We used a lot of this information to be able to track down video surveillance footage around different locations, as well as financial records, as well as call data records.
He also didn't, I think he intended to do a big bang and maybe even kill some people, but he didn't end up killing anybody else. Just himself.
As well as looking at the Tesla charging stations to be able to determine exactly which route the individual took, but more importantly, that it was the individual that we've identified, as well as the only individual in the vehicle during the path that he took to Las Vegas. As you'll see here in this video here at one of the charging stations, there's just one example. You'll see our suspect here. He'll exit the vehicle. He'll walk around the vehicle at different times. At one point, you're going to see that he opens the door of the vehicle, he retrieves a coat, he puts that coat on, and you're going to see that at different parts to include the photo that the sheriff talked about just a few minutes ago.
Boggling to call this terrorism with no victim or no apparent motive is really interesting, because how do you think so many terror attacks are thwarted by the FBI? Well, usually it's the FBI that's goading the person into doing the act of terror, but they stop terror suspects regularly. And then sometimes the ATF will go in to the home of a person for having an unlicensed weapon, and they find 150 pipe bombs. And then the judge will say, well, you have no priors and you're white, so it's fine. You're not a danger to yourself or others. And they just kind of they kind of let you stay at home, like the guy in Virginia. That's a real thing that also happened in these past couple of days, where they went to the home of a dude. I believe it was in Virginia. I forget where it was, but they found 150 pipe bombs in his home. And then he was still, the judge said he wasn't a flight risk nor a risk to others, and said that he could be out on, not even on bail, but like he was under Like he was under home detention. Some of the pipe bombs that were built were preloaded into an apparent wearable vest. A lot of the pipe bombs were also completely unsecured, even though he lives with his wife and children. Prosecutor said Spafford also acknowledged keeping a jar in his freezer of HMTD, an explosive material that is so unstable it can be exploded merely as a result of friction of temperature changes. Investigators found the jar stored next to food items and labeled dangerous, do not touch. Seems like this guy had proper OPSEC. Even after losing his own fingers as a result of his homemade explosive materials, he made his apparent remarkable decision to keep an extraordinarily dangerous explosive material in the home's freezer next to food items that could be accessed by the entire family, prosecutor said, arguing the man poses an extreme danger to the community and should remain in custody. His lawyer said there's not a shred of evidence in the record that Mr. Spafford ever threatened anyone, and the contention that someone might be in danger because of their political views and comments is nonsensical. In fact, the evidence proved that Mr. Spafford is not a danger, but a hardworking family man with no criminal record. Except he was a danger to himself. He blew off 3 of his fingers on one hand. Anyway, yeah, he was a hardworking man, hard at work, making 150 pipe bombs. He is not in a detention facility right now, for the record. I'm pretty sure they released him and said, like, I think he's under house arrest currently. Your Honor, God forbid men have hobbies. Is this the nanny state akin to the Chinese Communist Party? Or are we a nation of freedom and democracy? He had a $25,000 bond, as in 1/4 of the bond that the Florida judge had seen as a reasonable bond for the Florida lady with like children, the 42-year-old Florida woman with children, for the crime of getting upset at a phone conversation, a claims denial phone conversation with her insurance company. That's amazing. Anyway.
We use this video information as well as what I said earlier about the financial records in terms of purchases being made with different credit cards, call data records, a video canvas at multiple locations, trying to use all of that to corroborate that the individual that we've identified is the same individual that drove that Tesla during that route that we've identified to Las Vegas. In addition to that, we also talked about the phones that were recovered. There were 2 phones that we recovered from the vehicle. Both phones were damaged.
New York Times just reported on the manifesto. Okay, if the New York Times reported on it, we'll move on the manifesto. So maybe more credible than previously thought. Yeah, we'll
we are still
cover
trying
the
to
manifesto
access
in a
the
second.
data in one of the phones, but we have been fortunate in our team, which is second to none, has done a really good job accessing the data in one of the phones that was recovered. You can see the phone here in the vehicle. It's very burnt from the outside. You can see another image here. But we're able to take this phone and be able to extract the data using a variety of different tools. And in that, we've identified a variety of information, but one thing in particular is there was an application in there that the suspect used to take notes. In that application, one of the notes is titled Surveillance Log by the Suspect. It appears to be more of a journal of activity. It dates for about 10 days leading up to the incident, from December 21st to December 31st of this past year. In that surveillance log, or as we would like to call it, a journal, because it's more of a diary of activity that he's conducting, we identify multiple locations that match what we have in the route. We identify activity that we've matched. So, for example, him purchasing firearms, him purchasing camping equipment or other types of equipment that were used in this incident, matched what our data showed in terms of the route and the video surveillance we were recovering along that route. Beyond the operational activity, I want to also get a little bit into the post-blast investigation. So make no mistake, this is a suicide. We know also, as mentioned by the sheriff yesterday, there was a self-inflicted gunshot wound by the suspect. The coroner was very specific. In their examination, it was an intraorbital gunshot wound, which essentially means that the suspect put the firearm in his mouth and discharged the gun, and ultimately the round came out to the left side of his head. In addition to that, in terms of our assessment of the post-blast to confirm that he's the only individual involved and the only individual in the vehicle, we did a variety of video and photo comparisons to match the clothing. So if you look here, for example, this is a video in Las Vegas, and you're going to see in a moment here where he parks the Tesla truck. He comes out, and you're going to see some descriptive clothing that matches some of the other video that we've recovered along the route. Please keep in mind, this is a very extensive investigation, so there's a lot of content for us to review and examine. We're just showing examples and samples as we get them. There's more information as we go through it. But in this video, you can see even the distinctive jacket that he is wearing in that vehicle. The other thing that's important is the sheriff mentioned yesterday that Tesla sent to us engineers to come to Las Vegas to help us extract data from the vehicle.
It's so crazy that this dude was like, oh, I'm going to be a legend. I'm going to get America to wake up by blowing myself up. And all that remains is a vague manifesto as far as we've seen. And also a text message he sent to his ex-girlfriend that he feels like Batman or Halo. Like I feel like Batman or Halo. The email about the drones is not the manifesto that was reported by the New York Times. What email about the drones? I'm not talking about the drones. To be clear, some people are saying that purposely exploding a truck in a public space isn't terrorism just because he's a white dude. That's wild. Yeah, imagine if he was Muslim and did that. Now, even if he didn't kill anyone, I assume that many people would be like, "Oh no, that's terrorism. It just failed. It just didn't happen. Like it didn't succeed." The podcast manifesto talks about the drones. Oh, okay.
Cool. Thanks to their support, we were able to extract an SDMI chip from the Tesla vehicle. And Tesla was able to confirm to us using the data from the vehicle that the vehicle was not.
But it's not just that he's, a white guy, okay? Because as we know, you can be a white guy, but if you are successful and your victim is a high-profile CEO, for example, then that is definitely terrorism. We know that. We know that to be true as well.
Not in full self-driving mode at any time during this incident. Finally, the last category just to touch on is motive, which I know everyone is very eager to try to understand, able to explain what happened. I'll reiterate what the sheriff said is we still have a large volume of data to go through and a lot of content to go through. As you know, with any one of our devices, there's thousands, if not millions, of videos and photos and documents and web history and all of those things that need to be analyzed. But with that, just as a preview for as we get information, we're trying to be as transparent as possible. There were a couple pieces of content we thought were important to share for now. One is in the note application. He seemed to have two letters. One letter in particular, as you can see here, this is an excerpt from that letter. He says, fellow service members, veterans, and all Americans, time to wake up. We are being led by weak and feckless leadership who only serve to enrich themselves. He goes on to explain a variety of other grievances and issues, some political, some personal, a variety of other things, which we will do our best to release very quickly here. But then there's a second letter where there's some more excerpts. This one seems to be dated after the fact.
Wait, feckless leadership. No, he wrote it right. The cop read it wrong.
Here. But then there's a second letter where there's some more excerpts. This one seems to be dated after the fact in that notes application. And in there, you can read a couple of the excerpts. We are the United States of America, the best country, people to ever exist. But right now, we are terminally ill and headed towards collapse. This was not a terrorist attack. It was a wake-up call. Americans only pay attention to spectacles and violence. What better way to get...
Oh, he said it's not a terrorist attack. Okay, never mind. Then that's fine. Guys, you don't understand. He said it's not a terrorist attack.
Get my point across than a stunt with fireworks and explosives. Why did I personally do it now? I need to cleanse my mind of the brothers I've lost and relieve myself of the burden of the lives I took. I'd like to just also expand on that and understand that these are just excerpts. In there, he does offer additional information that is varying on the spectrum in terms of political grievances, issues about the conflicts elsewhere, not here, domestic issues, societal issues, a variety of other things, including personal challenges as well. We are intending to release those initial letters so people can understand the best they can what the person's thought process was at one point in time. However, please understand there is still a lot more content to go through, and that may change. There may be a lot more information that we recover that explains either more or shows a change in mindset at different times. Before I turn it over to FBI Special Agent Spencer Evans, I just want to take a note and just mention what the sheriff said, which is our counterterrorism section and all of the people involved in this have been working around the clock 24/7, tirelessly, truly through the night. They are second to none, and we really appreciate everything they're doing. With that, turn it over to the FBI.
Good afternoon. My name is Spencer Evans. I serve as the Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Las Vegas Division. I'd like to express gratitude for everyone that's here today, and especially the partnerships that Sheriff Corrin just highlighted. It's been seamless collaboration between the FBI, ATF, Army CID, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. You know, if you walked into one of the command posts and someone's not wearing a uniform, you wouldn't be able to tell who works for which agency, and it's been outstanding collaboration. We do have significant updates that we're sharing with you from an investigative standpoint, but just want to reiterate, as Sheriff Corrin mentioned, there is still a lot of ongoing investigation. We have terabytes of data that we have to analyze. We have outstanding search warrants and subpoenas, interviews that are being conducted around the globe as we try to paint a comprehensive picture of exactly what happened. That being said, we do feel confident that we have a much better sense of how we arrived at the events of the 1st of January and additional information that we can provide. So I'd like to first begin by addressing something that continues to be widely speculated, whether or not there was any connection between what happened in New Orleans on New Year's Day and then the incident here in Las Vegas just a few hours later. Just to be clear, there is no evidence that these two events are connected. The only things that we have connecting them are incidental, what we believe to be coincidental similarities in that both vehicles were rented through the same service, that they were both subjects served in the military, that they both stayed at an Airbnb, things like that. We've identified no telephonic or email communication between the subjects, no information that suggests that they knew each other, that they ever served in the same unit, that they were ever assigned at the same place at the same time and had interaction, and no witness interviews have corroborated or provided any information that the two events are connected in any way. In similar fashion, we have not identified any connection between this subject and any other terrorist organization. During the FBI's international investigation to date, as I mentioned, we have interviewed family members, friends, the subject's associates, and military members that he...
Both victims of family court, both spent time at Fort Bragg. But once again, that could be, that most likely is just independently radicalizing components
he served with around the globe. Through these interviews, we've found that the subject held no animosity towards the president-elect. That's something that's also been reported. Investigative steps have discovered and...
None of that is connecting evidence? No, I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it's connecting evidence.
From the Army indicates that he likely suffered from PTSD, and we are also aware that there were potential other family issues or personal grievances in his own life that may have been contributing factors. Again, we're looking into all of that. It's evident that the subject considered, planned, and thoughtfully prepared for this act alone. That's what we believe, and we have no information to the contrary at this point. The FBI has been able to confirm some of this through the utilization of video footage in public areas as he traveled from Denver to Las Vegas. We have video footage that shows that he is alone outside.
Can we stop normalizing victims of family court? Both these dudes made it real clear why the courts didn't want them having custody and why their wives left them. I can't even joke about family court victims now. Like, what are we doing here? Like, excuse me, you are not allowed to make fun of divorced dads any longer because I misunderstand the joke that you're making. And then I feel as though you are saying, that, that there is a real thorough line here. Like, do not, at this point, 50% of marriages end up with divorced dads. You don't see them, blowing themselves up. Okay. It's a very commonplace thing. I'm making fun of, a very common thing that happens in America that ends up making a lot of dads right wing.
Of the vehicle, and that corroborates again what Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department footage has also shown. The FBI, as the sheriff indicated, facilitated obtaining DNA from a family member that was able to be conclusively matched to confirm the subject's identity. As Sheriff Corrin mentioned, although this incident is more public and more sensational than usual, it ultimately appears to be a tragic case of suicide involving a heavily decorated combat veteran who is struggling with PTSD and other issues. Yesterday, I wanted to highlight...
Most divorced dads just end up doing the other thing. Instead of like blowing themselves up in this elaborate fashion, they just end up voting for Donald Trump and drinking away their troubles, constantly wondering why the rest of the family has isolated themselves from him and thinking that it is the responsibility of everyone else around them and not themselves that such a thing has happened.
I mentioned a tip that was unverified that the FBI had received. Sheriff McMahill talked about this. It's now floating around there on podcasts. This is a tip that the FBI received after the bombing occurred that seemed to describe some of the personal grievances that the subject may have held. We still have not conclusively determined that that's from the subject, but feel confident based on evidence that we're uncovering on his devices that that was in fact from Leivelsberger. I want to reiterate that, prior to this incident, the FBI did not have any information on this subject. He was not on our radar. He didn't have criminal history. There was nothing that we...
Damn, they hit the reverse. This subject was not on our radar. Our radar is now limited.
We would have been looking into him for up until this point. Last thing I just wanted to highlight briefly is it's not lost on us. We understand that there were victims. While the subject himself was the only person that was deceased, there were several folks that were injured, and obviously any sort of incident like this has a traumatic impact on the greater community and folks that are rightly so going to be scared and concerned, and some people that were inconvenienced and some that were taken to the hospital with injuries. We'd like to remind everyone that we're working with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department advocates, the Office of Emergency Services advocates, and the Southern Nevada Resiliency Justice Center to offer services to these victims. We recognize that there may be victims that are yet unidentified, so for those that might be suffering or otherwise impacted, we'd ask you to reach out to the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. And in similar fashion, as we reiterated yesterday, anyone who has tips related to the subject or this particular incident, please call us at 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit a tip online at tips.fbi.gov. And with that, I'll turn it over to the Assistant Special Agent in Charge from the ATF, Kenny Cooper.
Will they tell us how he ignited it or what?
Not playing. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kenny Cooper. I'm an Assistant Special Agent with ATF San Francisco Field Division. I have some very quick resource updates. ATF has brought in some of our top experts from our National Response Team that will assist with the sifting through the debris of the Tesla. And that's an abundance of caution to make sure that we've got the initiation sequence identified as best we can from the evidence that survived the thermal event of this explosion, and to ensure that no other bad actors were involved in the initiation of that device. Also, my second...
Chatter be like, I already told you how he did it, and then you look at it and it's just this theory.
Update is to the firearms purchased by our subject on December 30th, 2024. Our ATF investigators were able to track down that lawful purchase at a gun store in Colorado. Our subject arrived in that gun store by himself on December 27th and initiated the ATF Form 4473 and actually paid for those two firearms that were recovered from the Tesla on the 27th. And was sole occupant of a vehicle arriving and departing that on that date.
Subject was the victim of a kinetic implosion resulting in a thermal event after a thorough ocular pat down of the I love cop speak. It's so good.
And then on the 30th, we have video evidence of our subject entering that gun store as the sole occupant of the Tesla. He actually received and transferred those two firearms and took into his possession at that time, and departed as the sole occupant in the Tesla. Those are the two updates that
He departed as the sole occupant inside of the Tesla Cybertruck in a tactical style implosive event.
Here to provide to you at this time. Thank you.
All right, with that,
oh my God, you're so loud.
we'll entertain a couple questions. If you could, please identify yourself. And,
Dude, cop speak is so funny. It's like, all right, on that note, we will tactically ascertain whether or not the investigative questions that you are allowing us to hear. Hands up. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. He's got a gun. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I'm reverting back to tactical speak in this circumstance. I apologize. Identify yourself, sir. Why does he sound like he's going to arrest the reporters in the room?
we'll go from there. David?
David Charles, KLAS TV. Thanks for taking my question. Two quick questions. One, the video that you showed of him with the Tesla was able to extract that for you from the device. That's
such a funny way to operate. Like, I'm imagining sheriff's deputies at home being like, I've tactically ascertained that the The salt contraption mechanism that you have in your hands must be dropped immediately. Please hand me your license, registration, and the salt receptacle. He's just so cop speak that he doesn't have a normal conversation with his wife. I'm tactically deploying words into a registered microphone. Drop the salt now. Drop the salt now.
From the car, the video you showed him walking around and at the charging station.
Yeah, so let me just, the question was, can we, the video that we show, sorry, I was standing back there, so I wasn't sure which one you were looking at, but the question is, the video that we showed at the Tesla charging stations, who provided that to us? I'll let Dory answer that.
Without getting too far into the technicalities, there are various components in there that were retrieved. The SDMI card, it was not where the video was retrieved from. That was where we got the data to be able to determine that it was not in self-driving mode. However, Tesla did provide and helped our team be able to recover the thumb drive that records other types of data to include video by the Tesla.
In what state is this in? Do we know?
Kingman, Arizona.
Second question is about the detonation. There's a lot of questions. How was he able to die by suicide and set this off? Can you just in very basic terms explain how that could happen to kind of stop these conspiracies that he's not?
I've tactically ascertained the question that you have delivered to me, but you have improperly identified yourself. Now I will treat you as a hostile subject.
Yeah, so the second question is how are we able to explain the detonation versus the suicide? And we just believe it to be simultaneous at the time of the detonation. But again, that's why the ATF's bringing in the SABTs from outside to look at what that sequence was for the initiation of the explosion as well. And, you know, it's very difficult to see inside of those Teslas, even with the camera angles that we have. And so we still remain challenged on finding some of that exact timing on all of that. Go ahead.
Hi, Stephanie Price, Fox News.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. We're seeing reports that he had another alias as Matt Berg and went on a TV show in 2013. Have you guys been able to confirm that?
So the question is if we knew of a alias of Matthew Berg and he had been previously on a television show.
Damn, Matthew Berg?
We've seen that reporting but have not verified that reporting. Behind you.
That's Kevin Nyes with NBC News. How would you describe his state of mind in these?
He shortened his name, or no, the alias. Instead of Life is Burger, he was like, nah, just call me Berg.
Final days, given everything that you read from his notes.
Was he Jewish? No, his name is Life is Burger. I feel like that's the most WASP. Oh, joke. That's the most WASP German last name you can have, like German American. Everyone with the last name I love Burger moved to America, okay?
And the manifesto that you see that you reference going around in the podcast, have you guys been able to rule out that it was not from him, or is it still up in the air that it could have been from him?
So the question is,
oh my God, what is happening with the audio levels, man? What is going on, dog? It's like, oh, they open up the microphone and boost the gain so they can hear the freaking reporters, and then it ends up tactically blowing up, tactically creating an auditory implosion event within the suspect's eardrums. We have accidentally utilized an LRAD, a long-range acoustic device. You sound like the audio file chatters. I mean, that's crazy how loud that got.
State of mind and the manifesto that was described on the podcast, have we been able to determine whether that was from him or not? And I'll answer the first part is, I'm not comfortable giving you state of mind just yet. I certainly am leaning a particular way, but again, I'd like to be factual to you. I think when you read the documents that we're going to give you a link to at the end of this press conference, that you can go in and make some of your own assumptions about what that is. But I will tell you that part of my hesitation on that is I know that we have a lot more documents and number of things for us to uncover. And so I want to be able to provide to you only the factual information when I have it. And so I'm not going to opine on what I believe his state of mind was at that particular time. But certainly you can see some troubling aspects in his personal life as well. And I don't know if you want to address.
Yeah, this is tough. This is tough for a cop to opine on, okay? Because everything that he's talking about with respect to Matthew Livelessberger hits way too close to home, I suspect. Okay? You're basically asking a man to reveal his own personal journey in broad daylight in front of millions of Americans, all right? And you don't want that. It's hard. It's difficult to opine on such things.
That's the second part, Spencer.
Yeah, so in terms of the so-called manifesto that's circulating online, we have strong evidence to suggest that it was the subject that wrote it, but we haven't conclusively proven that yet. And that evidence relates to other evidence that we're finding that we're able to compare that lead us to believe it was in fact him who sent it.
Oh, dang. Well, we have tactically ascertained the veracity of the manifesto, which the suspect, the perpetrator of the thermal implosion event, kinetically put pen to paper. It seems as though there is veracity to the writing of said manifesto event. This is not the podcast email one. I'm not going to watch the entirety of Fortnite Friday chat. Calm down. I'm too busy tactically ascertaining what's going on with this improvised vehicle VBIED event.
J1?
Do you have an update?
Is it J1?
Yes, J1 from 13. Do you have an update on the conditions of the other people who were injured?
The question is, do I have any updates on the conditions of the people who were injured? And I'm told that they're all relatively minor injuries, and they've all been released from the hospital.
Kristen Drummond with News 3. As you were showing us these excerpts, can you say why definitively he chose the Trump International Hotel and why he decided to come here to Las Vegas?
Yeah, the question is, with the excerpts that...
Yes, that's right, chatter. I have tactically engaged in volume management to ensure that the auditory kinetic explosion event does not happen once again. I have now ceased. I have ceased the assault that has taken place in prior incidents.
That we showed, can we definitively identify why he chose the Trump Hotel Tower location as well as Las Vegas? And the answer is no. In fact, I think when you read through some of that, you might find that there were some other considerations as well for other locations. And we can't verify all of that at this point, and so that's why I haven't talked about that publicly.
Do you know what other locations he was considering, and were they here in Nevada?
There was one location in Grand Canyon that was specifically talked about there, but we haven't been able to verify anything as well. All the way in the back.
Berenice, Zúñiga with Univision Las Vegas. Thank you for taking my question. In regards to what happened in New Orleans, I know that you guys mentioned it's a coincidence, but what main evidence makes a difference to what occurred that is not being considered a terrorist attack here?
So the question is why don't we consider what happened in New Orleans and what happened in Las Vegas connected? And the simple answer to that is we don't find anything to actually point us in that direction. There are those coincidences that we have spoken very openly about, but we have not found throughout this entire investigation anything that ties the two attacks directly together. Go ahead in the back.
I call into the Las Vegas Review Journal. I had a question. Were you guys able to identify the type of explosives that were in the vehicle and where he would be able to find those? So
the question is, were we able to identify the types of explosives that were in the vehicle and where he was able to find those? There's a mortar-type fireworks in the back of the vehicle, some camping fuel, and we do know that it looks like from that document that we're going to provide to you that he may have stopped outside of a location in New Mexico and obtained those fireworks legally. But that is another aspect of the investigation that continues.
Noble Brigham with the Review.
Hi, Noble.
Thanks for taking my question. We've heard that the suspect wasn't opposed to President-elect Trump. Do we know anything about what his political views were?
The question is that we know that we've said that he was not opposed, the suspect was not opposed to President-elect Trump, and do we know what his political views are or were? There's a variety of different reporting out there, Noble, on what that is and some of the people around him and what their particular political views were. I think when you read some of these documents, you'll see that he actually calls it a stunt in one of these documents that we're going to release to you, that he was trying to get the attention of the American people because he was upset about a number of different things. But I'll let those writings speak for themselves. I'm not conclusively telling you anything about his political affiliations at this point, but I think that's more to come on that. Sir?
Anders Gutierrez with CBS News. Talk to us about you have an individual who is obviously struggling with mental health here, a member of the military service. There are others out there who may be struggling with this, a lot of mental health issues here. When they read these letters that you're about to release, how do you quell others who are struggling with the same from carrying out and seeing this as an inspiration? How do you quell the copycats out there?
Yeah, so the question is obviously, there's mental health involved in this, as we've already talked about, and how do we quell the others that are similarly situated to him out there in America? And you know, I think Spencer rightly talked about this for a moment. Is what you can tell by looking at this, that PTSD from a highly decorated United States currently serving military individual, from what I'm told, was 5 tours of combat. Obtained some of the highest awards you can get. It's not much different, quite frankly, than the reasoning why we started our wellness bureau here at Metro and taking care of the heart, mind, body, and soul of the people that are out there doing this work, because they're exposed to things, they see things, they hear things, they feel things, and they smell things that most normal people don't have to do. And the heroes that are serving in the military and on the front lines of America's policing are challenged that way. And so I think we need to really pay attention to those individuals.
This cop read the PhD dissertation of the olfactory cues in modern and contemporary prose. He read it. I'm inclined to believe that he read it. Olfactory ethics in modern and contemporary prose, dude. He read it. He knows. Talking about olfactory trauma.
Individuals pay attention to what mental health in America looks like. And I think this is just one more incident that brings that to the forefront of where